either we're going to master technology or technology is going to master us. And it's so weird how it's trying to make our life easier, but we become a slave to it. Mm-hmm. And we really have to keep it in its place for us to maintain our power over that technology, our ability to control our life. Welcome to Living God's Light, a podcast to help you strengthen your spirituality and your connection with God. We are so happy to have you as a part of the Living God's Light family.
Welcome to the Living God's Light podcast. I'm Alan Smith, and I'm here with
Vinny Tolman,
Lynn Taylor,
Lindsay Young.
And we're here to talk to you today about using technology responsibly. So, Lynn, what do you think that looks like?
Oh, you had to start with me.
Of course I did.
I love technology when it works. Love it.
Same.
But yeah, it is possible to misuse it, let it control your life. And that's one of the things that I found is really, really important is realize that it's a tool that you control. And as long as it's serving you and helping your life be better, great. But if it starts controlling you and making your decisions, or you just use it without even being conscious or intentional about it, that's when things start getting out of control and life starts getting harder.
I agree with that. And when it comes to you just saying that made me think of parenting. So parenting with technology, I mean, we're setting the standard, we're setting the example for our kids. And really, I'm always surprised to find like when it's useful and when it's all good, and then when it steps over into not good. And it's our jobs as parents to educate our kids on when it's useful, what to use it for, and when it crosses the boundary, you know?
Yeah, I think that's really important. Something that I notice is in society, we are always attached to our phones these days. Or to some sort of an electronic device. What's that all about?
Yeah. I feel that the phone itself is replacing the spiritual intuition that our ancestors had, that they would dive into and get their answers. And now we just Google everything. And it seems it's easier to go directly to technology for your answers all the time, rather than take the time, take the space, take the energy of diving within for answers.
And I noticed that it will take your energy if you let it. It's an energy sucker to some point. You know, when our ancestors did use just their own intuition, their own spiritual connection with God, it will kind of do a reverse effect with technology. It'll start taking that from you.
Well, as a creative, because I write and screenplays and books and things like that, and I find that the technology is great for transferring that from what's inside out to get to other people. But I've got to take time away from the technology to sort out what's inside, and to like the interactions with other people, that whole creative process, walking in nature. So it's important to do that disconnect so you can have that connection. And that's, I find in the creative process, whether it's coming up with ideas for work or, like I mentioned, with writing, that tapping into that divine creative energy is critical. And you have to disconnect from the technology in order to really do that on a pure level. Because
it's a great way to numb out, too. You have to do it on a pure level, because
the
more that you get sucked into it, it's like hypnosis. I mean, I choose to numb out sometimes to get away from my problems. And I notice that I will sit and doom scroll for a long time. So it's a way to, it's almost like a drug if you let it.
It technically is. It's a dopamine hit. Every time you see something really scary, or see something that increases fear inside of you, you get a little hit of dopamine. And that's there in us for a reason, for survival. But when you get so much, you get overloaded with it. And what's weird is, on the flip side of that, these little puzzle games do the same thing. A little win a little match, you're getting the same dopamine hit. And we're walking around addicted to dopamine. We don't realize it, but it's very common. You go in any restaurant in the United States right now, and you will see big groups of people staring at their phones, not talking to each other. And I've witnessed quite a few times when there's groups of younger folks, they'll start laughing because they just texted each other a joke or a meme. And
at the same table.
And they're at the table with each other. They couldn't just show it, and they had to send it around. And it's funny because the laughing starts on this one, and this one shares it to this one. And then they end up sharing it all the way across. And then out comes the phone. Isn't that hilarious? But it was so weird to me for them to be going for interaction here. And that's the primary interaction, not the people sitting, 6 inches away from them. Mm-hmm. That's so odd to me. And we're raising generations now with this as their foundation of social behavior. And there's going to be some repercussions.
I think we're already seeing some of those repercussions. We see a lot more anxiety around people and their space. They're around a lot of people, and that causes them a lot of distress. Whereas we used to just be around people. Just because that's how life was. You went to school, you went to church, you went to the store, you went to all those places. You went to a play, you went to some activity, and you went to a party. You always had a birthday party to go to when you were a kid. You went and always did those things with people. And I'm sitting here thinking about your example of people sitting at the table sending a meme around. Instead of showing them the meme or talking about the meme or anything, they're sending it to the person that's 6 inches from them. And I think that's just really ironic that, we're looking for that connection, but we're not looking for the actual connection. We're using a pseudo connection, can I call it that?
Well, the thought that comes to mind is, okay, we recognize that, but what do we do about it?
Right.
And what I'm thinking is, first thing is make sure that we are modeling the behavior that we would like to see in other people. And then also...
Wait. That means we're supposed to do what we preach?
Wow.
I know.
As a parent, that's really hard to do.
It is. Well, and here's the other key, though, is that, and this is one of the core things that really the whole thing with the book, The Light After Death, and these principles is it's all got to start with you. You've got to not... There's kind of a switch that happens internally between I do this because I know I should, and then switching to I do this because I want to. And look for that connection personally. And then here's the other key. You can start modeling that behavior to other people, but you don't have to be like, hey, we should do this because it's better. You invite people to have a conversation. You're sitting at the dinner table and you become more engaging and more distracting than whatever is in the phone. You become that dopamine hit for the other person. Mm-hmm. And you do that by being engaged and interested in them. And because now they feel valued, they feel important, and now they have a reason, they're getting a better feeling out of that interaction with you than they are getting the little doom scrolling on the phone.
Yeah, I agree. And you were just saying that by showing example. And I have teenagers, so this is a really relevant subject in my life right now. And it is hard to get a response or an action out of your teenager by telling them what to do and why it's bad. Those kids are looking to model after what you're doing because they're looking for identity in their life at that time. They're doing that with their peers. They're doing that with their parents. And last night I noticed, I have an example of this. I, plugged in my phone in my bathroom instead of right next to my bed. And, my son came in and he turns his phone into me every night, and I had him go plug it in the bathroom. And then he sat on my bed and we talked for a minute. And I was watching this cool documentary and we were interacting while we were watching it together. And it was just interesting to see, you put it 10 feet away from you where it's no longer in grab reach, and something special happens. We could be missing out on lots of special moments because of this.
Yeah.
I love that. So let's follow that idea of what are some solutions? We're talking about using technology responsibly. How do we do that? What are some things that we can do with our technology and with our habits and processes that will help us use that technology wisely? Any ideas?
Well, the one that sticks out to me is one that I've known for a long time, is the hour of power. So first 30 minutes when you wake up, last 30 minutes before you go to bed, make sure that there's no, doom scrolling, news, sports, entertainment of any kind in that space. Only uplifting things, or meditation, or prayer, or scripture study, whatever calls to your soul. Allow yourself that sacred time, even if it's just stepping away from technology completely for 30 minutes before you go to bed. It allows you to have that mental space to realize that you're not some type of consumer of constant entertainment, or consumer of constant social media. Mm-hmm. But that one, it's pretty amazing. If you dialogue or catalog what you're watching as soon as you wake up and what you're watching right before you go to bed, you're essentially looking at what you're framing your whole world with. And if you're framing that with certain particular things, you now know why you have the certain paradigm that you have. Yeah.
And building on that, so you got the hour of power every day to disconnect. I also recommend regularly, maybe once a week, maybe once a month, whatever, take a look at what technology you use and why, and see, is this bringing me closer to the person I want to be, or is this hindering my progress? And then anything that's in the way of you becoming the person you want to be, you figure out a way to get rid of it, scale it back. But and then look for things that can help build you, whether it's, like in my case, I listen to a lot of music. I love music. It enriches my life. So I use technology to consume music a lot. But I also make sure that the music that I use helps me it puts me in that space, that mental, emotional, and energetic state that I want to be in. So it helps me in that regard. And then the communication tools, everything else. Really wrapping that thought up, take some time every week or so to just kind of reflect, what am I spending my time on? What technology am I using, and why am I doing it? And just be intentional about every single thing you use.
I agree. And I mean, let's talk about social media for a sec, because I'm just going to say I am on social media. I'm not going to say I'm above it. Like I'm on there, but one thing that I have done when we kind of challenged ourselves, through the retreat and different moments where we're like, hey, let's focus on cleansing our technology. Cleansing is the word that I just used, but really looking through your social media, and we all have those feelings that we get when we scroll past a certain message, a certain profile, a certain, and really, like, what's helped me is cleansing that, going through who am I following? Who do I see? Even if I scroll right past them, is it worth having them in the feed? Maybe not. So taking the time, spending 30 minutes to go through and unfollow who is not enriching your life. And really, algorithms and things will come together and you'll start seeing stuff that matters.
And you want to kind of get in a habit of regularly doing that too, because some content creators will be creating at one level and all of a sudden shift and go to a totally different strategy, totally different energy. And if you were following them for who they were 2 years ago, they're very different now. And you think, haha, I used to like the videos they do of helping homeless, and now they're out there like doing pranks on people and stuff. So it's important for you to regularly check that to see who you are following and clean that up for sure.
Right.
I love what Lynn was talking about a few minutes ago in reevaluating what it is that you're spending your time on and how you're using that technology, and the things that are on your devices is what I'm going to focus on. I think it's really important to go through and look at the apps on your devices and start deleting things that are distracting.
Wait, you can delete apps off your phone?
You can delete apps.
Yeah.
That's
it's
crazy.
So bizarre.
I thought it was a one-way road on that one.
You just hold your finger on it, and all of a sudden this little thing pops up and says,
delete uninstall.
App. Gosh, so strange. It's super easy. You've also got some really cool functionality on, I use Apple, I'm not going to lie. On my iPhone, I can go in and set limits. I can set time limits on a specific app and say, after a certain amount of time, turn off, or come up and give me a reminder and it says, give me 1 more minute, give me 15 more minutes, or ignore for the day. So depending on what I'm up to and what I need to work on, that is a great reminder for me to be able to step out of my doom scrolling or my constant looking for everybody else's lives and what they're up to. Any tips and tricks you guys can offer?
One of my friends has a really cool procedure for his home. Is he labels very clearly the no screen zones. And bedrooms are number one space. They're all no screen zones. He has a central charging station that everyone goes and puts their phones. Every room that needs one has an actual alarm clock. Those antique things that we think they don't make anymore, they still make them.
Amazon.
Yeah, exactly, Amazon.
That's a novelty.
And so what's neat though is they're using alarm clocks because how easy is it, when you go to turn off that alarm, to dive right into that dopamine hit right away. And so I've noticed that with his kids specifically, the kitchen table is another no screen zone, and he does force them to be at 1 meal a day all together as a family. They get to choose. So they choose their schedule through the week, which meal that is, whether it's breakfast or dinner. Most of them couldn't be there for lunch unless it's like a Saturday, but that really impressed me. And I think in the future, we may even see an app that allows you to create no screen zones in your house. That'd be kind of cool.
That would be awesome. That's one of our family rules, is that we don't do phones at the table. While we're having a meal. We actually look at each other and talk, and I love that. So maybe for the last couple of minutes, we can talk about habits, personal habits that will give us something a little bit different along the lines of, family things like that, or rules, things like that are maybe helping you manage that technology more responsibly. How about we start with Lindsay down on the end?
What I've been doing lately, recently, I've just been going through highs and lows, had a few lows, and noticed that I was scrolling a lot. And one thing that I chose to do just periodically was like every 15 or 20 minutes, just kind of like broaden my view, like zoom out and be like, okay, is this helping me? Am I hurting myself? Is there something else that I feel like I could be doing? Because I know when I'm, feeling down, sad, whatever it is, that everyone deserves rest, but to really check in with yourself, like, is this scrolling the best choice for me right now? And sometimes I say, yep, it is. And I keep going. But then I'll check in with myself again, a little bit later. I'll watch like a 15 or 20 minute episode on TV while I'm telling you all my secrets right now. So all my screens going at one time, but checking in with myself. And then once you just give yourself a little bit of time to zoom out and be like, I think I should go like outside or something. I think I should go take a breath of fresh air. But if you don't give yourself that mental check-in, like, is this the best for me right now? But I'm good at it sometimes, not good all the time. But the end.
Two things. One, yes to everything that you all said about kind of rules in the household. And we did something similar. There were no screens in the bedrooms for the kids growing up, because we knew how easy it is, especially in those formative years, developing those habits. And it's worked out rather well now that they're all out of the house. But the other thing is, you can't just have the technology not there, because then you've got a vacuum. You've got to fill that vacuum with something. So I find that being intentional, having a bigger picture for my life and what I want to accomplish, makes it easier to replace that with something else. Because you just put it away and you're sitting there bored, you're like, okay, I got nothing else to do, I'm just going to pick it up again. But if you've got that thing that's fulfilling to replace it with, that other thing that's going to give you the dopamine, even if it's just meditating or whatever, just be intentional about the life that you want to live and the decisions you're making, and don't just be a passive passenger in your own life.
I love that. So for me, I think it's finding hobbies, finding things, like you said, to fill in that space. My wife loves to quilt, and create these beautiful things. And so she's constantly doing those types of things in her life. And so her hands are busy. So she's not picking up her phone. She's not always scrolling and looking at those things. And I think that makes a big difference. I love to write. I love to play with in the garden and dig my fingers in the dirt and do things like that and listen to music or listen to a podcast or something while I'm doing those things. So you can kind of blend the two and use them in a really, really great way, but still accomplish things and not feel like you're just sitting there doing nothing, which is, I think, what you said is grabbing something and you're always looking to be on that device because you don't know what else to do.
Yeah, and I think that we just have to understand one thing, that either we're going to master technology or technology is going to master us. And if it masters us, we become a slave to it. We really do. And it's so weird how it's trying to make our life easier, but we become a slave to it. And we really have to keep it in its place for us to maintain our power over that technology, our ability to control our life. Yeah.
So I think wrapping up, it's all about the power of choice. It's about how we choose to use the technology. It's about how we live our lives. And if we use intention, that we can use those things in a positive way.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So that being said, thank you for joining us today. We would love to have you come and check out our other episodes, livinggodslight.com, and click like, subscribe, all of the buttons and things, and we will see you next time.
Thank you for joining us on the Living God's Light podcast. You can help keep the show going through getting merch at livinggodslight.com or contributing what you think the show is worth on our website or by going through Patreon. Thank you for sharing your light with the world. You are making a difference, and we love you.